Welcome to Craving More, a CrossFit CRAVE podcast where we find motivation through obstacles, resistance, and everyday life, with your co-hosts, Matt and CJ. On today's podcast, we become the guest on PRing Your Life with Dr. Libby Wilson and health coach Alix Payton. Please enjoy today's podcast as we review grit. We talk about things that we've struggled with in our lives and how we were able to overcome them. Sorry about the video, guys. There's none available today. Please enjoy the great listen.
Welcome to the PRing Your Life podcast, episode number 14. This podcast is designed to help age 40-plus athletes live their best life.
On this episode, we're going to continue our talk with our friends Matt and CJ about grit and the hardest things we've ever done and what we learned from those experiences. We're keeping it real and sharing the highs and the lows, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
We loved having these guys on the podcast and felt like we could have talked to them for hours. Let's jump back into our conversation about grit. Remember, the only thing that is different between people who achieve their goals and those who don't are those who don't give up.
We've got a lot to share, so let's quit wasting time and go.
Hi, I'm Dr. Libby.
And I'm Coach Alix. Welcome to PRing Life podcast, where it's all about thriving, not just surviving as an over 40 athlete.
I've been a family practitioner for almost 20 years, and I have been dissatisfied with what medicine has to offer athletes. Now, as a functional medicine doctor, I've teamed up with Alix, a functional health coach, to talk about how to get to the root cause of symptoms.
And together, we'll teach you how to make 40 and beyond the best years of your life.
Met this guy. We still talk on Instagram a little bit, but he would just we talked about everything and anything. Like I would sneak Sour Patch Kids in my pocket and just like hand him some.
Yeah.
And then he'd tell me about his wife and his kids and what he does for a living. And it's amazing how close you get to a person when you're just like, it's amazing.
That mutual suffering for sure.
Yeah.
Now, so like what made you decide to sign up for it? Like your buddy's getting ready to go, he's going to be a Navy SEAL or try to be a Navy SEAL, right? And so you like hear about this and you're like, I'm going to sign him up for this. Is that kind of how it started?
Well, he told me about it.
Okay.
Initially, he dropped out because he couldn't afford it. So I was like, oh, I'll pay for yours. And then, so as his like going away present.
Got it.
And then I got roped in.
Yeah, so he did it too and finished it as well.
Because no one wants to do that alone.
I know. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I have friends that I've done that with too.
Yes.
They may be sitting at this table.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was suckered
You're coming along.
Yeah, suckered me into some things for sure. Yeah. But are you glad you did it?
Yeah, I'm very glad.
Yeah.
I was after, what were we going to say?
I was going to say, what'd you learn about yourself?
Yeah.
So after
definitely.
the Go Ruck, we were in North Carolina. We were driving back up and we stopped in Athens. So my friend graduated from Athens as well.
Okay.
So we were just stopping in to see my fiance lives in Athens and then, goes to school there, I guess. But so we were stopping in to see her and then some like professors and stuff and a couple of friends. And I was walking to class with Alyssa, my fiance, and it started pouring. Like we usually have like a 25-minute walk to class. So I'm walking with her. I'm hobbling with her because I still can't move.
Yeah.
But then it just starts pouring. And it was like usually I'd get so mad. I'm just like, you're getting wet. Then you have to go sit inside. And then it gets cold. And then I didn't even think about it raining. I was just like,
right.
I'm like, this isn't bad. Like I walked for 24 hours in this stupid stuff.
Right.
This
is nothing.
Yeah. I don't even have a backpack on.
This is so easy.
I don't even have boots on.
Yeah, literally. But so then I just got to thinking like why do I usually get so upset when it's raining or I'm getting rained on when rain is so essential to life?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm pretty sure I can deal with being wet for a little bit if it means the plants will grow and animals will get water.
Exactly.
You know? Like you feel oddly selfish.
Yeah.
Because like farmers and being around here, like farmers and everything need that rain.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, I wish I could be comfortable for 5 more minutes while I'm walking to class. Like get over
How
yourself.
like egocentric is that, right?
Yeah, literally.
Exactly. I think about that with like COVID right now. It's like, you know, what a bummer that I can't like do all the things that I want. And it's like, I'm in the comfort of my own home with like Amazon Prime delivering whatever I need to my door.
I can still go to Winans.
DoorDash. I mean, like all the like
coffee is available.
binging Netflix. I mean, like it's like this is so comfortable. Like this is not a sacrifice.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
in any
Yeah,
way.
yeah. We talked about that a little bit, about the lessons from COVID.
Yeah.
You know, and the
It's true.
the giving up the little things. You know, and for me, it was that you know, I've traveled around the world, so I see countries that are not as fortunate as we are, whether they're
Yes.
communist countries or they're so when your freedom's taken from you,
Yeah.
right? Which, let's be honest, there were some freedoms taken from us in
Right.
COVID.
Yep.
The freedom for commerce, businesses. You
Yeah.
know, you finally get a feel for what some of the other, you know, 99% of the world's population
Right.
lives in every single day.
Yeah.
On a
So-
I mean,
micro scale.
honestly, first world problems. I mean, we had this discussion. It's like, come on, what are we really complaining about?
That's right.
I mean, wow.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know.
So for a short amount of time, a month or two,
Yeah.
stuff was locked down and your freedoms were taken from you. We'll live the rest of our lifetime, before and after, with all the freedoms of any country in the world, more so than any country in the world.
Yeah.
There's some people that live that
Yeah.
Every
every
single day.
day.
Yeah.
Please don't take it for granted.
Right. Absolutely.
There's
Be
a-
thankful for what you have.
Have you seen the documentary like Happy on Netflix?
No.
Happy or Happiness or something?
Is it good?
Yeah, it's really good. But it compares like people in those, I don't know, that area of the world with like Americans, and they all rank happier than we do.
Right.
You know,
Isn't
that's
that
what
interesting?
it's funny you said that. We had friends that lived in Mali, West Africa, in Kachala, and they would talk about, because they don't know a lot of things,
That's right.
they're just happy.
Right.
They're happy playing with a rock and
Yeah.
balls and different stuff and playing
Yeah.
outside, because no one has told them they're not happy.
That's right.
Because they don't have PlayStations and game
Right.
boxes and Targets
Right.
and groceries. And yeah, exactly.
Well, who do you compare yourself to when everyone's on an equal level? You know?
Yeah.
None of them have anything. You're
Right.
Yeah.
golden.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
like you don't have to keep up with the Joneses because
Right.
That's right.
the Joneses don't have
The
anything
Joneses
either.
aren't even there.
That's right. Yep. I learned that lesson firsthand. It was in Guatemala. It was in the capital city, what used to be the capital city of Guatemala, which is not anymore, but it was up in the mountains on near a volcano range. It's no longer there because it was completely destroyed and then rebuilt after that. So they moved the capital city of Guatemala. But we were visiting the old city, if you will, that they rebuilt, and there was two little boys that were shining shoes. And I was down there for work, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And we were taking a break, and we were touring this city. So I said, yeah, come along. You can sign my shoes. And had a conversation. They spoke English. Had a conversation with them, very broken, but they were able to speak. And I gave them a $10 bill, you know, because I'm like, here's a 10.
Yeah.
And they were looking at me like, wait, we don't have any change.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And I said, that's okay. Take that. And they scrambled off. And I talked to them before they left about, you know, hey, stay in school or try to learn, right? Try to take care of your parents. You know, do the things that you would want, you know, a child like that to do. And the guy that was with us looked at me and he says, you just fed that family probably for the next month.
Oh my God.
And I'm
Really?
like, you're kidding.
The average income's like
Yeah.
$100 a year.
Yeah. And and I'm like,
Yeah.
what? And he goes, yeah. He goes, those two boys, they're out of school because they can't afford to go to the schools down
Yeah.
there.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
And my guess is you provided their family for the next month, that $10 bill.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, reality check.
Exactly.
And we spend $10 like at Winans, you know,
Yeah.
and just
That's
buy
right.
coffee and
Yeah.
don't
You
even.
and your coffee, I tell you.
Yeah.
I know. It's privileged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Crazy.
It's
That
true.
is
Yeah.
so crazy. But yeah, the military stuff is pretty cool, I think, you know, and that's just what a neat thing
Yeah.
to do and
Yeah.
what a neat challenge to
Did
put
they
yourself
ask you to
proud
They
of
live
yourself.
that all the time, though.
I'm sure. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm sure they're like, do you
Yeah.
want to join?
Did they ask you to join?
Sign
They
up on
didn't,
the bottom?
No.
You
Really?
should. Like, have you ever thought about
Yeah.
joining the military?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know though.
Yeah.
I don't. That's a weird thing that, like me and my fiance are working through right now.
Yeah.
Because you just like we said earlier, like, or you asked why, like, what made you do that
Yeah.
thing. I just keep trying to find really hard things to try to like find yourself, you know.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't really know what I'm doing, like, and it's not like a depressing way. I think a lot of people my age are that way.
Absolutely.
But you're just like I gain so much more from that than I do like binge watching Netflix.
Right.
Or, you know, like if I'm going out and then you see other people and you see other people's perspectives, like that's why I love this podcast so much is like so many people come on, like I get you guys' perspective. Like I
Yeah.
get,
You've got a thirst for kind of learning and growing. And like, I see that in you for sure.
Yeah.
Like my husband was in the Army. So he went to basic training right out of high school, Army. And I mean, he was kind of a goof off at this point of his life, you know, and he just, you know, wasn't real disciplined. He was a smart guy, but just not really, you know, didn't have it quite together. And the Army, like, he talks about basic training very much like that. Like, they kept telling him, like, you can quit if you want to. Come on in. It's warm. We'll give you a nice drink if you want. And just getting through that. And then just, I mean, he just matured a lot as a person there. And I remember we were dating, and he was in ROTC in college. And he was trying to decide if he was going to go active duty or guard, reserves. And I was applying to med school. And I'm like, look, I can't. The path I want to take is not going to allow me to be this Army wife that can move. And so he gave that up and decided to go a different route. But he misses it.
Really?
He loved the military. And I think he loves what he does now. I mean, he's had some great opportunities in life. But I think he wishes he could have done more with the military. And he just grew so much as a person and a leader. I mean, that some of the stuff that they teach in the military is just so awesome. And some of that special, like, you could totally like do special forces or something. And oh my gosh, CJ, that would be cool. I mean, who knows, you know, but it's still a super cool thing. And like, I think there's, I mean, so many people could never get through that.
No, they would have quit right off.
And I don't, 23-year-old Libby could have not gotten through
I don't know,
that.
48-year-old Alix.
I'm not sure.
That's
I mean,
right.
I think mentally now I would tough it through, but I don't know. Like at that 23, no way. So that's huge. I think a lot of these endurance things that I see people go through, it happens when they're a little bit older in life. You know, like I didn't.
Mentally, you're a little bit stronger.
That's right.
So to have that at 23, like, I think that's huge.
Yeah.
I can't, I mean, I can only imagine like when you figure out what you want to do in life and you set your mind to it, like unstoppable, I think. For sure. And you know what? Like, a lot of people at 23 don't have it all figured out yet. I mean, it's, you've only been exposed to what you've been exposed to. There's a whole big world of all kinds of things out there that you don't even necessarily know about yet, you know?
Right. Yeah. But I think that's like the beauty of it, you know? But I think when you realize that getting uncomfortable is like awful while it's happening, it's like a small price to pay for how much happiness and joy you get out of it. Like later, you know?
Yes.
Like you slowly start to find joy in the things that most people think suck.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like walking to class in the rain. It's like, instead of it being the worst in the world, they were like, I've got the
old CJ would be so mad right now.
Yeah, exactly. New CJ's got some perspective.
Yeah, we're good to go.
Yes.
It's not what happens to you, but how you react.
Absolutely.
100% character development.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
that's great.
100% believe that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
And nobody can ever take that experience away from you.
Exactly. And that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, because that is super cool stuff.
Your buddy went to he's the one that left for SEALs?
He leaves July 20th.
Yeah.
So he's going to be in the training for a Navy SEALs?
Yeah, so he leaves I don't really know the whole process. He leaves July 20th for like the Navy basic.
Okay.
And then January is when his like BUDS training starts.
Oh my gosh. Is he from Coldwater?
Nope, he's from Belpre. It's close to Athens. So I met him. I didn't meet him until my sophomore, junior year of college.
Got it.
But he was in our like close friend group, same major.
Okay. I'll have to, like, my husband would love to hear how he does and stuff. I mean, that is
fun to watch.
Cool.
Yeah.
Super cool, because that's legit, man.
Yeah,
Navy SEAL training.
No
oh my
kidding.
gosh,
That's crazy.
He's gonna have some stories.
Some
to
hard
tell.
dudes.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Miss Alix, you're up, girl.
See, now you've got me all like, because originally the deal was fitness, and then you change it to life stuff.
It can
You
be
had
fitness.
a little time to.
Because I
Not
was
be on
such
the
a
fly.
screw up from about age 13 to 19. So,
47.
Welcome to the rest of us.
That's it. 13 to 19.
well,
That's
you know,
not
it's
much.
really funny, Matt. I have to say this. You're like, I finally started kind of getting my life together at 25, 26.
Yeah.
So I got pregnant when I was 18. And my husband, he continued to be a screw up. I love you, Dan, but you know it too. But he'll admit, it wasn't until he was like 25 or 26.
Yeah.
And we kind of joke, like, I found out I was pregnant and a switch went off on me. Like, that lifestyle ends now.
Yeah.
I'm now a mom.
Yeah.
And I'm so internally grateful that I had that switch in me, that happened, because it doesn't happen to everybody.
Yeah.
That switch didn't happen until I was seeing a divorce lawyer and walking out the door. Then the switch went off.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting just on how, like, at different points men kind of come to that.
Yep.
And he was about the exactly same age. You know, he had a choice which path and said, okay.
Yeah.
I want my path to be with God, my family.
Yeah. Our stories are extremely, very, very similar. Because when my first wife divorced my first wife, and she was 18. I was just turned 20.
Okay.
And she got pregnant.
Yeah.
Right. And then it was that the switch didn't happen for us. It took headlong into a divorce, headlong into 2 kids. Like,
sounds like you being the primary parent.
This has got to change. And so you start to work yourself out of that. Yeah. And sometimes the other partner just doesn't want to follow that same path. And but you're right. So our stories are very, maybe it started differently, but finished in the middle there.
And I guess I guess kind of talking about that grit, kind of the same thing. You know, I had some stuff happen, and then bad choice after bad choice leading up to that. And, 100% so internally grateful that I got pregnant when I was 18, because I honestly don't know where I'd be today.
Yeah.
I have no idea what path it would have gone. So, I mean, that was the best thing. And so, but it was so hard being young and just feeling like every door is closed in your face. And every time you're trying to get ahead, it just seemed like it was a constant struggle forever. Yeah. I mean, it was, it took me, and I'm glad that I had that, of knowing it was terrifying. I'm like, I'm 18. I'm with this guy who's got a lot of issues. We're stupid. What were we thinking? Yeah. I don't have I have no education to fall on. What am I going to do? How am I going to raise this kid? Yeah. And so that really set my path on. I have to get my degree. And it took me 10 years to go to school, to, night school and Saturday classes and everything, to finally get my bachelor's degree. But it was really that having him that made all that happen, which I'm so...
Catalyst,
What seems like when you find out you're pregnant as... a young person, it's like, this is the worst thing that could ever happen, right? But it turns out sometimes to be the best thing that could ever happen.
I mean, for both of us, and Dan and I both say all the time, we're both like, let's have a baby. This is a great idea. Yeah. And, and so it was like, what were we, I'm so grateful we didn't screw this poor kid up. I mean, Colin is just an exceptional human being. I really don't know how he came from us. But, that definitely has... I will say, set for Dan and I the mindset of, you have choices. You have choices on how you want to go. Yep. No one gave us anything. It was, we had to, it was a struggle after struggle. And so it definitely set forth, and I'm going to say probably the same thing like when Dan and I did our first marathon together. It was so overwhelming for him, because he said, everyone said I would never make it. My dad said I was going to have the 8 ball the rest of my life. I was going to be behind it. And so it was that for us, that people saying you're never going to make it, you're a piece of crap, you're this, you're that, that just fueled that fire for us. Yeah. And so, in a lot of ways, I'm kind of glad, that's, kind of inspired.
The chip on your shoulder kind of.
You talk about a chip.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely have that chip.
Yeah,
and
that's for sure.
Yeah. So, but I guess that really kind of, I think, Matt, you tell me if you agree, that coming from a very addictive behavior, I stay away from everything.
Yeah.
But fitness became my addiction.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where I was at, 10, almost 11 years ago now, when Ashley first opened Crave. And that was, I found out from CrossFit from a different individual, a different friend.
Okay.
And then she opened it in Celina, and that first week it was like the addictiveness very early on. But I was going to go back. You made a comment that resonates with me, and that where you dig out of, when you made that switch, I think, at least it was for me, and I see it in our kids, the probation kids that we bring in, is you tell so many lies
Yeah.
When you've got that chip on your shoulder
Yeah.
to get through things, right?
Yeah.
That lie becomes reality, right?
Yes.
For yourself.
Yeah.
And then you're stuck.
Yeah.
Right? And because now it's one lie leads to the next, leads to a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right? And it took me till I was 26 to learn that first of all, the outward lies that hey, look at me, I'm happy-go-lucky. And inside it was just
Dying.
trash.
Yeah.
It took me to change that and say, okay, this is where I'm really at. And it took one friend to enter my life to say, hey, like I see through that lie. I see through it.
Did he call you out on it?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Wow.
I see through it. And then it was like, oh, yeah. But I don't know if that's the way it was for me. It was like that constant lying to myself internally, which turned into lying externally, which turned into that's the life I led.
I'm going to say that was more my husband.
Okay.
That was more for him.
Yeah.
Living a lot of half truths.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that was definitely for him. Mine, and you kind of talked about that person in your head of, I always go back to that person in my head of, I never want to go back to that darkness. Never, 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 never.
Yeah.
And, when, Dan will say, how was your day? It was great. My day's great.
Yeah.
Because I don't ever want to go back to that.
That's right. Yeah.
And I know what it can be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so it is very interesting. It's not things you talk about, with a lot of people and just kind of being that raw, but it is, it's made us who we are.
Sure.
And 100%. But, and I'll say that definitely got us, that really drew me. So my background was more the marathon running, the longer running, that kind of stuff, the trails, and it was interesting. There's a lot of former addicts in the endurance community, a lot. And so I think you find that same like-minded person.
Yeah.
And so you feel kind of at peace and kind of accepted in that. And so that was such a draw to me. And that was such a really healing of just being able to be yourself and talk about, because, like you said, the social media thing, we were going to this great church and everything else, but their picture perfect. And I'm always like, if they had any idea, if they knew what I'd done, if they
I wouldn't be accepted then.
They would not accept me because they're perfect. They're perfect. Oh my gosh, they're perfect. And so it was very nice to just be like, wow, here's who I am. Here's what my past was. And, take it or leave it.
Sure. Yeah.
So that definitely got into the fitness. And I think that really, that kind of determination has really kind of powered through a lot of constantly proving to myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not beating someone else, but it's proving to myself I'm good enough.
Yeah.
When you're good enough just the way you are.
Exactly.
But
it's still there. It's still,
Yeah.
that from being a kid of not being good enough.
Yeah.
Of,
Yeah.
And you know what? I think we all struggle with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you struggle with that today?
100%. Like I had to learn to be a friend just a few years ago. And Libby and I talk about this, that I always, my husband calls it my push stick. I've got my, hand out because I didn't grow up with emotions. We didn't ever discuss feelings, never talked about love, never anything, never hugs. And so I never had that connection with humans. And, until I had kids, and all of a sudden for the first time in my life, I have these emotions and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so different than, and then dealing with, boy, we're getting deep here of, why do my parents never feel this way?
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's interesting to kind of deal with a lot of that kind of stuff, but that's a whole other. But just always feeling that self-worth and still feeling like I need to set these massive goals to prove to myself I am good enough.
Yeah. And it's easy to backslide. I found, just physically from my shoulder surgery, the mental process of knowing what to eat right and how to be healthy and all that. Man, when adversity steps into me and that head starts to really take over, that's when the backslide. And I backslid.
Yeah.
Well, Matt,
big time.
Libby knows this because I was always the runner, Alix the runner. And I felt like that's where a lot of my people in my life came from because, I want to hang out with Alix. She's such a great runner. She's this, she's that.
Yeah.
And then I got this crazy injury. Well, then I wasn't the runner anymore.
So who are you?
That's finding that identity was about 2 years. Of all of a sudden, I have to rely on a personality to get friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a joke.
You're right.
But seriously, like I had to learn on how to be a really giving two-way street friend for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
And it was,
Yep.
it was the best thing it was literally the best thing that ever happened.
And it's amazing through that process is you really those words like you really find your true friends when you're the lowest.
Thank goodness Libby's still here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I went through that exact same when I made the decision to stop drinking.
Yeah.
And I'll have an alcoholic beverage now every once in a great while. Right. We don't go to a lot of parties. It's just because I know what that leads to. Now I've got full control now. No problem.
Yeah.
Like I can have a glass of wine or a beer or a glass of tequila because I really enjoy the taste of tequila. No issue.
Yeah.
No problem at all. But when I made the decision when I was 26, like I got to stop.
Yeah.
Like right now. And some of these friends, I was in their weddings.
Yeah. We had that too. Gone.
Literally. Gone. We're not over a short period of time, like a couple of weeks or a couple of months or gone. Hey, I can't drink. I'm not going to do that.
Because you make them uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I didn't know that then.
Yeah. You make them uncomfortable.
So, so you think about that little person in the back of your head says, okay, I got to make a change. Now I've divorced, 2 kids on my own, 26. Like, there were times where I was opening the cupboard going, I got no food in there. And all my money spent on alcohol. And I got these 2, so you start dialing parents like, hey, can we come out for dinner?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And
that's the struggle. But you're like you said, your friends, like it's true. Like I woke up one day and went, I got nobody.
Yeah.
All the friends I had to reassociate with.
Yeah.
And you start to think there's something like inherently wrong with you, like deficient with you.
I
For
deal
sure.
with that all the time.
I agree.
Every time something happens, I'm like, what did I do? It's just, it's an immediate, what did I do? I'm not worthy. I'm obviously not worthy of their friendship.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Instead of being like, Libby and I listened to this great podcast, she actually had me listen to it of, you're not for everybody, and that's okay. Be you. Be the authentic you. Either they like you or they don't. And so that was, a really powerful, but.
Yeah.
We got a lot in common.
Yeah.
That's another podcast.
Well,
That is a whole other podcast.
But I think we all have some of that, and we all think it's like a deep, dark secret that we want to hide within ourselves, because if we say it, then people will see how flawed we are, and then we'll lose everything that we've got, right?
Yeah. That's
right.
But I think it's such a common experience.
That's why it's so weird is that it is so common.
Yeah, but we all want to put on this facade that like,
exactly.
I'm perfect, I've got it all figured out.
Or you'll pick the good parts out about someone and be like, oh, I don't match up in that realm. Like, I'm screwed.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're like, someone else is like, well, yeah, but they don't have this or this or this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah. We can see like the highlight reels of other people's lives. And it's interesting. Like when I first get to know somebody, like I'm sure we've all experienced this. Like when you meet somebody for the first time, like you're like, wow, like that person's got it all figured out. Right.
Yeah.
And then sometimes as you get to know them better, you start to see they're good and they're bad.
Sure.
And you realize that they're just a flawed human, just like the rest of us. And sometimes we were like, oh, well, they're not maybe as impressive as I thought, but they're real. None of us are as impressive as people think.
That's right.
We are all just, struggling, imperfect,
Right.
but worthy people.
Oh, sure.
Right. And I used to just think like when I achieve this one thing, then maybe I'll feel better about myself or something. And, and they do kind of make you feel a little bit better, but then it's kind of short-lived.
For how
and then,
long?
and then what next? Right?
Well, and we talked about this once. It was interesting, like after we did our Ironmans and stuff, and you would talk to the other 99.9% of people, they're like, what's an Ironman, the movie?
Yeah.
That people don't get what you've done. And so it really doesn't mean anything to 99.999% of the world, because they have no idea what you're talking about.
But it shouldn't. Right?
Exactly. It shouldn't. You do it for you.
Right.
And right.
If you're if that's what you're looking for, that outside accolades, it's No one
It's
cares.
a lonely
Well,
world there.
I joked. I used to make fun of, and I think I did this at first. Like, you get your stickers and you put them on your car
Right.
and
Oh,
all
yeah.
that. Then after
Did
that,
that.
I was like, I don't need. It became my joke. Like, I don't need to tell everybody how awesome I am. You know.
Yeah.
I don't need to do that. I don't need to throw all the stickers to
Sure.
let everybody know everything that I've done.
Yeah.
So,
People tend to like you more when you're like, I don't know, when you talk about the realness, I think, is like
Yeah.
people dig that and just can relate to it more.
Yeah.
You know? It
Exactly.
really is so true.
all right, what's your grit?
Oh, gosh. Okay. So I originally was going to talk about the JFK 50 miler
Yeah.
that Alix roped me into doing. We did a 50 mile
There's your story.
quote unquote run. It was more like a walk.
And
Yeah.
I had to didn't I have to get you out of the shower, out of the bathtub?
Yeah.
Talk about
Afterwards.
yes,
Oh, no.
yes.
Yes.
So
Nice.
she's like, hey, thank God for CrossFit that I could do
Yeah.
or carry.
Literally, like I was so beat up afterwards that I hobbled into the hotel, got in the bath. I think I had to take a bath instead of a shower because I couldn't stand for the shower. And then I couldn't get out of the tub. And I was like, I had to call. I'm like, she was in the room just
Yeah.
kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you need to come in. Help.
I'm like, for real? She's like, yes.
Yes. And I'm like, you know,
I'm glad she's so little.
Yeah.
Like, it helps.
Yeah.
but it was like I've done a couple Ironmans and, you know, a 50K and a bunch of marathons, but that thing was so hard. And it was a lack of training. You know, I did it several months after an Ironman I completed. So in my mind, I thought, well, I just trained for an Ironman. This will be easy. This won't be any harder.
Yeah.
But trail running is a little bit different than training for an
and
Ironman.
the first 16 miles are on the AT.
Oh.
So it is
Yeah, hilly. Yep.
and very
Super
jagged
hilly.
rocks.
Yeah.
Very,
So you're
yeah.
climbing some of it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we kept getting to the different stations, cutoff points, like just in time to not be cut off, which
You're
I've
almost
never.
hoping that, yeah.
Yeah.
But so we knew.
Oh, I tripped. Sorry.
Yeah.
We knew we had to keep running to make the cutoffs.
Yeah.
But yet we felt like we couldn't run, but yet we did. You know,
We
and
made it.
We made it. And I never really considered quitting. I
No.
mean, it was just one of those things. But as I was thinking about this, Andy was asking me what I was going to talk about, and he said, I think you should talk about year one med school. And I said, you know, well, that's really the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things that, first of all, I didn't feel like I belonged in med school. Like I felt like everything in my
You're
life.
the smartest people I know.
Well,
What do you mean?
I felt like I
dumb.
See, yeah,
all the
for
time.
real.
Yeah.
But see, you see everything like shiny in her life, and she just sees everything dull.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, we all do it, right? So
Yeah.
I felt like I had kind of gotten in by the skin of my teeth. Because I had. I mean, I was on a waiting list, and then I got in kind of like, I don't know, I think it started in middle of August. I got in July, I think. So I didn't know for sure that I had a spot until then. And, you know, you're just looking around at all these other kids that are super smart, and you think, you almost kind of feel like you kind of lucked your way into it almost, you know? And and I was somebody in college and in high school, I'd worked pretty hard. So like I wasn't just this like naturally smart person who could just not study and get good grades. Like I think I'm naturally pretty smart, but I always worked super hard too. Like I wanted to like ensure that I was going to get an A on the test. So the way I would ensure that was I would study super hard, master all the material that they're going to potentially ask you about, and I'd get a good grade. And then med school starts, and the amount of information you have to learn is super cumbersome. And so it no longer worked to just master everything
Right.
to make sure you're going to get an A on the test. And I remember the very first test in gross anatomy, there was this list of objectives to know. And it was over the first couple of months of stuff that we had learned. So it's just massive amounts of information. And I decided, well, I'm going to go through these objectives and just memorize everything that these objectives are. And one of the first objectives was to learn the origin and the insertion of like all the muscles of, it was probably like the whole arm, and it was upper body stuff. And so I made these flashcards, and I remember like memorizing exactly, like really I should have memorized general vicinity, but like I was looking this up so it was like the muscle brachioradialis. So it would be like the lateral supracondylar ridge of the humerus would be the insertion. And then and then the origin would be like the styloid process of the radius. And I memorized that.
I
and
can't
it took
even do that.
Yeah.
hours and hours and hours
One of those
to
words.
I can't pronounce
Yeah.
the words either. I mean, I had to relook it up because, of course, it never stuck.
Sure.
I mean, it stuck long enough for that. But because I spent so much time, I never got through to a lot of the other objectives, even though I was like studying every
Forever.
waking hour, right? So I take this test, first test in med school. I get a C. Now, a C might as well be like an F- in Libby's book because like that is total failure. Like A.
Total panic sets in.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am not cut out for this.
Yeah.
Like this is a mistake that I'm here. I shouldn't be here. This is, I am just a fraud. And if anyone really knew how stupid I was, they'd never let me in.
Yeah.
And so I decided that I just needed to study harder, which was going to be really hard because I was studying all the time, And at this point, I was engaged. So I'm planning a wedding and I'm, studying all the time. And it's just becoming super unhealthy. Like, I mean, I'm just barely eating, barely sleeping, just studying. And then shockingly, I started to do a little bit better. I think that was the only C I got. I started getting mostly A's and B's, but it was at what expense? Like, I mean, my total health is just going down the drain.
Yep.
And then what happened was we bought a condo. Actually, my mom bought a condo for us to live in after we got married. And this would have been like in the spring of the first year of med school. And I remember we were like fixing the condo up, trying to get it ready. And we had bought wallpaper to put some wallpaper up. And my husband's mother and aunt came to kind of help me hang some wallpaper. And I'd taken the weekend off, which was unusual. Usually I would study all weekend, but we were starting to hang this stuff. And we didn't get it completely up. And so we were going to have to, just leave it as is and get back to it later.
Yep.
And it drove me nuts that it was like half done because I'm like super OCD about that kind of stuff. So I like stayed up, I think like all night trying to do it myself.
Trying to get it.
Yeah. And which got me tired. And then I had to sleep. And then I got a little bit behind in school. I mean, just a little bit. I was just like taking like a day off, got me so far behind. And then it just started to kind of pile up. And I just remember one day waking up and saying, I can't do this anymore. I'm just done. And so I tell my husband to be that I'm done. And I'm like, I want to quit. And he's like, really? And I'm like, I don't think I want to be a doctor. This is not for me. And so I did. I quit.
No kidding.
I quit. Yep. I went to the dean of the students, and I said, I changed my mind. I don't want to do this. I'm not cut out for this. And they were like, really? Like, you're doing fine. Like, I think I had like a, B average in med school. So it wasn't like I was in danger of failing. I'm like, I just don't think this is for me. And they're like, okay, well, we'll put you on a leave of absence and then you can come back if you want. I'm like, I'm not coming back, but thanks, but I'm just done,
Yeah.
So I quit, I leave, we get married. And then I'm like, now what am I going to do? Right. Like, I've never even considered anything else. I was going to always be a doctor. And I worked at a bank actually right after I was like, I've just got a job to just make some money. And then I got a job as a pharmaceutical sales rep. So I got a job with Eli Lilly and I started doing that. And it was a super cool job, but I'm like in doctor's offices every day, and I'm like, that's really what I want to be doing, I think.
Yeah.
So it didn't take long. It was less than a year. And I went back to the school and I said, look, I think I changed my mind. I think I do want to come back. Yeah. And they were like, all right, so they just let me kind of jump right back in again. And, but I did things a little bit differently then. And Matt, you said this at the gymnastics seminar, stay in your own lane. That was something I learned then. And I realized, you know what? It doesn't matter what anybody else is doing here in this med school class. It would be like, there'd be a big exam and you'd all sit around with all your friends. Like, what'd you get? What'd you get? What'd you get? And I decided there's no point in that. I'm going to just do what Libby can do. And I'm going to do the best that I can. And if that's better than somebody else, great. And if it's worse than somebody else, that's okay. I'm just going to do what I can do. And I'm going to have a little bit of balance in my life too, which was not a lot of balance. I mean, it was like, I remember I would get up, I had class pretty much from 9 to 5 every day, Monday through Friday. And I would get up at 6 and I would study from 6 to 8, go to school all day, come home, eat dinner, and then I would study from like 7 to 10 every day. I mean, Monday through Thursday. Friday, I would do that morning routine, go to school all day, and then my husband and I would go out to dinner and maybe a movie or something on Friday night. And then Saturday, we'd get up and run errands in the morning, and then we'd spend the afternoon and the evening at the library. Because he was in law school, I was in med school. Yeah. And then we would spend all day Sunday studying every week.
Wow.
I mean, that was just the routine. But I never would take away those things that were the treat. Like as far as Friday night, didn't matter what we had to do. We were still going to do something. Saturday morning, we were still going to run the errands. I remember Friends was really popular, the TV show. Like that was on Thursday nights. And so I would tell myself, like, if I got through all of these things, then I would take a 30-minute break and watch Friends. But if I didn't get through it all, nope, not watching it. Like, and I would be real strict about that. And shockingly, like that coming back, it was so much better.
Different perspective.
It was a different perspective. I was no longer, and I realized like everybody's coming from a different spot in life. Like some of these people were a little bit older. Some of them had like a master's degree in anatomy, and I'm trying to like compare myself and beat them. And really, is that even necessary? Like, what does it even matter what they're doing? Like, I can they be successful and I be successful too? Does their success take away from my success? No. Like, just do your thing, just show up every day, do the work and learn it. But I remember sitting in this condo, in this little second bedroom that I would study in, and looking out the window at people doing normal people things and being so jealous. Like, I mean, people like riding their bikes and things like that and thinking, I want to ride my bike, but I've got to study. But I had enough insight to realize that like this is just the grind and it's not forever.
Right. And soon you'll be able to do that stuff.
Yeah, I'll eventually be able to do that stuff. And my husband and I were both big delay gratification kind of people. Like we delayed a lot of gratification for a lot of years, and now we have this like really great life that it took a long time to get to, but it's so worth it. And so I look at that leave of absence as like, I mean, I totally quit, and normally like that JFK thing and Iron, I just usually don't think about quitting, but it was probably the best thing I really did, because it was what I needed, and I needed a new, fresh perspective. And I don't know exactly how I matured enough in that year to kind of get it. I don't know. I think it was just, I don't know, grace. I mean, that I was able to get there. But I would say it was one of the biggest growth years of my life. And I was probably close to your age, I would say. I was, because we just had our wedding anniversary yesterday.
23 years.
23 years. And I was 22, about to turn 23 when I got married. And that's right when it was kind of all sort of like falling apart for me a little bit there. And it was in that next year that I was like, all right, I think I do want to do this. And I'm so glad it worked out the way it did, but it was mentally a pretty rough
but
time.
I think that's, what so many of us don't realize, and you did exactly what we would tell our clients to do, is step back, look what's not working, and then come back and learn from what didn't work and try a different way. And it worked. So it did. So sometimes, like I never want to think about quitting, but sometimes maybe it's not quitting, it was just taking a pause. It was hitting a pause.
But learning to stay in my own lane was huge. And you forget that from time to time. Like, I mean, there's other parts of my life where I forget to stay in my own lane, and you get into that comparison trap. But it's such a terrible place to live. But I remember thinking, like, I don't really belong here. Like, I really am not as smart as these other people. I'm just getting by the skin of my teeth. And the only reason I'm getting by is because I'm putting so much work in. If I take a break for a second, they're going to see how inept I really am at some of this stuff, And so I think we all share that, right? Like, we all 100% share that. And it's just... it's not true. I mean, we're all capable of so much more than you think.
Yep.
And I think I want to ask everybody kind of what their takeaway is. Like, I think my takeaway is this. Any challenge, this is going to be really hard. But then what I tell myself is, but you can do hard things, you know, and I've proved that time and time again that like, I don't, you know, I can do hard things. And I just remind myself of that, whether it's something as simple as like cutting sugar out of my diet. That's going to be hard, but I can do hard things.
Yeah.
Or if it's a 50-mile trail run, you know what? I can do hard things because I've proven to myself time and time again that if I want to do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Matt? What did you say a takeaway would be?
Yeah, it's interesting you ended that way. I think that what I always try to tell myself internally and the kids are what I said before about always rise. Like, take the situation you're in and figure out, how'd you get there? You know, why are you in? And then it takes one step in the right direction to make that change. And that's, you know, always try to rise out of the situation, like you said.
Yeah. Evaluate,
assess, change, you know, and take that direction. Your comment. So I'm now into year 11 at CrossFit. I've got to re-up my L2, you know, because I'm 5 years into that, and it's that L3. You know, do I go for that? And just like your thought process, I'm like, well, I'm not smart enough. I don't know enough about it. Like, I don't have the time it takes to learn that. And there's another coach that owns a facility in Dayton that's like, why don't you have your L3? And I'm like, because of everything you just talked about. I'm not you, and I'm not smart enough. I don't know the material. I don't know it well enough. I've only been doing it 11 years. And he's like, dude, you could have passed it 4 or 5 years ago. Like, just listening to you deliver like a, you know, gym. And I'm still that way though. I'm still like, I'm not taking it because I'll fail it. And that's, as I sit here today, I'm like, yeah, I'll fail it. But I think right now I'm gonna have to take it.
I think you should.
I just said it verbally.
Sign up to right now.
Matt. I think you absolutely should, because we all do that to ourselves. You know. And it kind of feels like, like you feel like, oh, I've got him fooled that he thinks I can do it, right?
Yeah.
But no, you don't.
I can't
Like,
do it.
that is because we're our own worst critics. You know, we absolutely are. You know, I think if we could only see us as other people see us, or as God sees you too, you know, I mean, that is just, you know, and we look, I mean, like, I don't know. I can look in the mirror, and if I've got like one little, you know, zit on my face, like, that's what I zero in on when I'm looking in the mirror, you know, instead of what other people see, you know, and it's just not good to beat ourselves up like that. It's not helpful, you know.
I agree.
It really isn't.
Yeah, for sure.
What about you, CJ? One little takeaway?
So a couple of things, like, I can do hard things. Like, that's just, the more hard things you do, it's just kind of a way of life. You know? So you saying that, and you constantly repeating that in your head, that's that positive self-talk, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely crucial. And then just taking one step forward. Like, I don't know, in the Go Ruck, I said I thought about quitting a lot. Well, obviously it'd be nice to quit, but like, I'm not going to quit, right? Like, the thought of quitting leaves my mind so fast, just because, like, I don't know, I'm walking and I'm like, CJ Cyber doesn't quit. CJ Cyber doesn't quit. You know, just keep repeating something. But Matt talked about when you're going down the wrong path, you're constantly talking about, or you're constantly lying to yourself. I think that's really similar to what your mind goes through when you're doing like these hard things that we were all talking about. Is like the burpees or the Go Ruck or whatever, or like you're kind of microdosing or exercising your mind for those scenarios. So you're always, when you're doing something like during the Go Ruck, I'm like, oh, this coffee would be so much better than what I'm doing right now. And like, you're just, dude, just go to the coffee, get the car, go in the car, you know? But that's like, that's not productive. Like, in the future, your delayed gratification, I would not be happy with myself, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like that, or eat that donut, and then you're like, no, I'm above that donut. And then you walk out of the house and you're like, oh, sweet, I didn't eat that donut, you know?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
It's like even just little things, but if you can delay the gratification, and you're, by doing the hard things all the time or making the hard choice, or like not the comfortable choice, embrace productive discomfort. That's one of my favorite quotes.
I love that.
But, yeah.
Embrace productive discomfort.
So if you always do that and then you choose, it's always going to be better for you in the long run, right?
Yes.
And then you get happier, and then you quit quitting. And then
absolutely. I love that. I love embrace productive discomfort. Love that.
Like,
Alix, what about you?
I kind of have two different things. I mean, I definitely look at, no matter what situation it is that you're going to learn something from it. You're going to really always I don't even want to say, I don't look at those as failures. You know, like my first Ironman, I DNF'd. I had a really bad day. I still think it was the best thing that ever happened because I went back to the shower, cried really hard for 5 minutes, felt sorry for myself, pulled on my big girl panties and went off and cheered, you know, for people all day. Had a great time with my son that came and watched my husband have an amazing Ironman, which I wouldn't have got to do if I was, you know, out on a course. So I'm grateful that we have those awesome, awesome memories. But I feel like there's always something to learn through those situations. And kind of going one step deeper is I always had this in my head, and I don't know where this started at one point, but I always used to sit there and think in situations that would happen when you have those moments of how you're going to handle it. I would picture myself at the pearly gates of heaven sitting with God, and it's he and I with a videotape, and he's pushing play, and we're watching how I behaved. And I always wanted those decisions to be the good decisions, and, you know, what my character was going to look like. And so a lot of times I think about, all right, if I'm sent with God with a VCR, of course, it's not VCR anymore.
That's right.
But what is that going to look like? Because it's only he and I accountable for myself, nobody else. And so I think those things always kind of sit there with me with that. My takeaway is, what does your character show in those moments of really hard times?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's good. Like, your purpose is the purpose God gave you, right?
Yeah.
It's not.
I feel like I'm living his story to tell.
Right. And it's not what you think Joe Schmo down the street thinks about you.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, or thinks he should.
Yeah.
He thinks you should do, you know?
Right.
Like, you should do what God thinks you should do, not what Joe Schmo says.
And here's the thing. People are not so worried about what we're all doing because everybody's worried about what they're doing themselves.
Yeah.
So true.
You know, it's not like, I mean, you tend to think that there's not, you know, I mean, it's just, you got to do what makes you happy.
When I came to Christ and I finally was baptized, as the church that we belonged to at the time did a little video, and, you know, they talked about, you know, what you've been through, and you had to go up in front, and I wrote some things out, and I gave a nice little speech, but in the background they had "Mercy Me, I Can Only Imagine" playing. Right?
Every time I hear that.
Yeah. And that's the song that I picked because of what you just said.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. And in my mind, I can only imagine all of the things that you've seen.
Yeah.
That I've done. You know, and that's the part that just like gets you.
Exactly.
It is.
Exactly.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys, this was some good
I know.
stuff.
Good.
We've done some hard things.
Yeah.
Life is hard.
Only more to come.
Just since I put it on the outline, we got to do it real quick. We got to talk about one real quick little thing that, like,
Our fun fact.
a fun fact about you that, like, most people don't know. Like, or not, maybe, I don't know, maybe that we don't know, I guess. Like, just, and it can be something totally goofy. Like, mine's, you want me to go first?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go first.
Matt has to think of one quick.
I had to think of one because CJ's like, what's your fun fact? I'm like, okay. So I was like, would you, like, I used to be in love with the Brady Bunch. It was like my favorite show to watch. And I remember this like kid came over to play one time when we were kids. I lived in St. Henry. That's where I grew up originally. And he came over and he's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, the Brady Bunch comes on in like 30 minutes. And he's like, I don't really like the Brady Bunch. I'm like, who doesn't like that? I didn't realize it was possible. Like, I loved
We don't like those people. If you don't like the Brady Bunch, go home.
I could tell you to this day.
That's where my hand comes out. Get out
Go
of here.
home.
I haven't watched it for years, but I could still. Like, there's not an episode I have not seen.
Okay, we need to have a girls' night. We're
Yeah,
just going to
watch
watch
the
all
Brady
5
Bunch.
seasons of Brady Bunch.
Loved the Brady Bunch. Like, my absolute favorite. I thought they were the coolest kids ever.
Yeah.
And I loved their house. I wish I could have had their house. And their maid, Alice. That would have been awesome.
I know.
Okay,
Man.
who's next? See, it can be just goofy like that.
I'll go next. Mine's really dumb. So my kids, my two will probably remember this. Tanner will for sure. But I used to get them embarrassed because I can take the tip of my tongue and touch my nose. And I could like literally like pick my nose with my tongue.
Oh my
God. So I would embarrass the kids.
You got to show us now.
No, I can't. So okay, I'll show you guys. There's
Yeah,
the
you probably
camera's not
forgot
on.
to.
Yeah. It's really
Okay,
easy.
let's see. Oh,
So
that's
so
even
I
like
would
coordinated
embarrass
effort.
the kids, and they'd be like, "Oh, Dad, you got to stop that."
Stop it, Dad.
So that's embarrassing.
I can't even get my tongue halfway there.
Yeah.
Wow. Sorry, people.
That's right.
What about you, CJ?
So mine's not really that funny, I guess, but I once decided 8 hours before I left that I was going to drive to the Grand Canyon.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
8 hours.
Yeah, I decided Sunday night at like 8 p.m. Just called
Let's
it.
drive to Grand Canyon tomorrow.
Yeah, I hated my summer job, and so I texted my boss. I said, "Hey, I'm going to Grand Canyon this week," and he's like, "No, you're not." I'm like, "Yeah, I am. I'll send pictures." And he's like, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Cool, have fun."
Did you get fired?
No,
Yeah.
no. I told him.
Oh.
Like he was a cool guy, so I was
Okay.
like screwing with him, you know.
Okay, got it.
I called a couple friends up, and they're just like, "Tomorrow," and I'm like, "Yeah, let's go." And they're like,
is awesome.
"That's the dumbest. No, we're not doing that." I'm like, "Okay." So then I finally called one of my girlfriends up, not girlfriend, but friend. That's
Friend
a girl.
who's a girl. Okay, yeah.
That's right.
But I called her and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to Grand Canyon tomorrow. You want to come?" And she's like, "That's dumb. No." Hangs up. Like 10 minutes later, calls me back. "Hey, I'll go." Because I was like, I text her a picture of it. I was like, "I'll send you pictures."
Oh my gosh.
So
So
then I
just
went-
the two of you went.
Yeah, I picked her up. So I called her. It was like 8:30 or 9 o'clock Sunday night, and I was at her house. She lives in Versailles. I was at her house at 5 a.m. the next morning, and we left.
And you went to the
And then
Grand
came
Canyon.
back.
Wow.
Yeah, we had to come back next Sunday night, because I had an eye doctor appointment early Monday morning.
Can never change those. I
Yeah,
mean, those are like
nope.
set in stone.
Wow, we can't miss that.
Can't miss
you
that
don't
one.
want to hear my story then.
That is awesome. I
Is it
love
fun?
that.
Oh, it was amazing. It was the best trip
Yeah.
of my life.
Wow.
Not
we
the
were
best trip.
just saying we want
My
to go back to
fiance is
the
going to
Grand
listen to
Canyon.
this.
Yeah.
Yes,
not
I
the
know.
best trip.
We drove out to Colorado for spring break. That was
Okay.
probably my best trip.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or
Love
when we got
Colorado.
I don't know, whatever.
Absolutely.
One of them.
Lovely.
Oh my gosh. What about you, Alex?
Okay, well, I'm kind of jumping on your bandwagon. My mother still brings this up. Didn't go to my high school graduation. I got in my car the last day of school, packed it up, and moved to Florida with my best friend.
Oh,
What?
no
Nuh-uh.
kidding.
And so she called me and she goes, "You're coming home for graduation?" I go, "Nope." But you came home for an eye appointment. I didn't even come home for graduation.
Oh my gosh.
Well, there you have it. Not
No.
Oh
coming
my
home.
gosh.
Not coming home. So they had a party without me.
Oh my.
They still talk about
Oh, I bet.
that.
I bet.
graduated in 90.
Yeah.
I'm still not forgiven.
Oh my gosh,
Wow.
Alex. And how long were you there?
About a month and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Totally worth
That's
it.
It
amazing.
was.
Jeez.
Probably going to do it tomorrow.
Rebel.
My kids did not know that. I would get so upset, like, if my parents would, like, bring that up. "Do you know what your mom?" I'm like, "Hush.
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring up good kids.
That's right. I don't want them to
Right.
do that.
Don't tell them."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Well, this was good. Thanks, everybody. I think we're
Yeah.
talking about our next episode. We're talking about testosterone.
Testosterone.
Oh, cool.
So, testosterone, I mean, it's, starts to get lower as we get a little bit older.
Even for the ladies.
Even for the ladies, for men and women. And so it's something that we like to check on our patients and
Yeah.
make sure it's optimized because it makes a big, big difference. So we're going to talk
Cool.
about
Yeah.
that on our next episode. And
Yeah.
thanks, everybody, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks
so
for having
much.
us. This was a
Yeah.
blast.
This was awesome.
Awesome.
Yay. Thanks, guys.
No, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the PRing Life podcast. If you are interested in learning more or would like to work with us, head on over to our website, www.northsidefunctionalmedicine.com. See you next time.